This is Talk is Sheep, the official podcast of the Wild Sheep Society of BC, brought to you by Sitka Gear. Come along as we bring conversations that matter to you into the high alpine. This episode is sponsored by our conservation partner, Stone Glacier. Thank you, Sitka Gear and Stone Glacier, for investing in healthy wildlife and sustainable ecosystems. Well, here we are, another episode of Talk is Sheep. Two very special guests, both veterans to the podcast. So really honored to have on two really cool people that have done so much in the world of conservation, Dr. Caeley Thacker and Josh Hamilton. So welcome to both of you to the podcast. Great to have you on today.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Hello. Yeah, good to be back on.
Awesome, you guys. So this is a very mission-oriented podcast. We have an ask from our wild sheep community today, certainly if you're in British Columbia. Some great work being done on the ground, again, to support conservation, and this being led by the provincial government and, of course, the societies involved, and there's a bunch of moving parts as well. So we're going to dive into that today, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and I think maybe to start things off, actually, maybe Caeley, for people that don't know, could you just give us the 30-second rundown of your position and sort of what your main thrust of what you're doing from a day-to-day basis is for us?
Certainly, yeah. So I am the wildlife veterinarian for British Columbia within the provincial government. I'm in the Ministry of Water, Land, and Resource Stewardship. I am based in Nanaimo, but my position is province-wide. So all things animal health, from bees to bison and anything in between. And so projects like this come about when we are looking for more information from a certain species or a certain group of animals, maybe in one part of the province or province-wide, to try and understand those health pieces a bit better. So gathering more information so that we can understand how these populations are doing. Being that I'm in Walrus and we're a management-focused ministry, that's the ultimate goal, is conservation through management of these species. And health, obviously, is a very important piece of that. So learning as much as we can and applying that to management is what we're here for.
Right on. Well, thanks so much, Caeley, and thanks for being here with us today. And I know you've been certainly a busy person with so many things going on, avian flu and CWD and all those things that just take so much of your time. So we're really grateful to have you on the Sheep File when you do get the chance. So we're really, really lucky to have you. And Josh, please give us an intro. I know that 99% of our listeners don't need the intro, but maybe the odd one that doesn't know who you are, just and the role that you play and the important role and the many things you've done for the society over the past decade.
Yeah, currently just kind of a backbencher and sitting on the projects committee and trying to direct some traffic there. As director in the past, but just trying to kind of manage some of the projects that we got on the go as far as Northern Burns and some smaller ones like the salting campaign and this came forward, so it was nice to kind of help get this ball rolling for this, kind of just direct traffic in that project capacity.
Awesome. I'll take a bit of offense to a backbencher. That term does just not fit with you because you don't do anything backbench and certainly not wild sheep conservation. So, and again, to Josh, thank you for all you do. And this is a great project. And of course, with the society, we're a member-driven organization. So anything that we do, we sort of need a proponent and somebody to sort of drive that. And Josh, you've done that so many times. And this is another one that you worked really closely with Caeley on this, and you brought this to the board of directors and got it through, and obviously a great project. So I'm really excited to hear about sort of the, like as a board, we've met and we've gone through it all and we've done all the sort of legwork on it, but I really want to dive into the weeds here. And I've gotten a lot of questions over the last couple of weeks from resident hunters sort of curious about this. So I'm really excited to hear about it. So maybe between the two of you, Caeley and Josh, you could just sort of tee it up on what we're doing and why this project's so important, the geographical aspect of it and who's being affected, that sort of stuff for us.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks, Kyle. So I just want to start with introducing someone else that's been very instrumental in this project, but isn't with us here today. Dr. Amelie Mathieu, who's also a wildlife veterinarian. She is based in the Kootenay region, is not within government, but works very closely with government and supporting wildlife health in the Kootenay region, as well as some areas outside of that. But really has put her mind to this and has been involved in sheep health, particularly over the last few years. So this idea kind of came about with, again, trying to understand more about how these populations and how these different health parameters that we look at all tie in together. So the project that we're moving forward and going to ask for support for is to look at mineral status of wild sheep, bighorn sheep in the Kootenay region, to start out anyways. So what we know about macro minerals and micro minerals, or trace minerals as they're also called, is that they're very important for health of all species, humans included, wild sheep included. But we don't have a great idea of what those important levels are, or if there are thresholds in those levels that may impact health in other ways. So we know that certain minerals are very tied to physiological factors such as growth, reproduction, immune function, and ultimately survival and persistence of a species. Currently, we routinely collect samples, serum samples from live captured animals, and we test those for trace mineral levels. There has been research in other jurisdictions kind of doing a similar type work, historical research, looking at what those trace minerals are and how healthy those sheep populations are in other ways, but we haven't really dug into that in British Columbia. And sheep, all animals, again, wild animals, become adapted to certain levels of these minerals in their environment. And so the levels that we use currently, or the guidelines, are from domestic sheep. So when we have results back from wild sheep, these serum levels of minerals, we compare those against what we know for domestic sheep and kind of say that's within a normal range or that's not within a normal range. But we don't really know if that's appropriate for the wild sheep populations that we are handling. I'll step back a little bit there and just describe the difference between these mineral types. So I've talked about macro minerals, and those are minerals that are needed in large quantities, essentially, and micro minerals or trace elements that are needed in much smaller quantities, but are very important for certain functions in the body. And then we also have contaminants or heavy metals and things that are not needed and may actually hinder the uptake of the minerals that are needed in the body. So we'll also, as part of this work, look at those heavy metal or contaminant minerals. So the other piece of this is that some of these minerals are stored in the body and some are just taken in the diet and used as they come in. So the serum levels that we measure are not always the best measurement of what that animal has available to them because of the storage capacity in some of the organs. So the best way to get to the levels and to study the levels of those minerals is to collect tissue samples from deceased animals or harvested animals. So that's where we're going with this.
Caeley, can you talk a little bit you talked about macro, micro, and then contaminants. Give us maybe some examples of what are some macros, what are some micros, and then where they come from. Like, are we talking salt licks and obviously diet and that sort of stuff? Just to give us an idea of what sort of minerals you guys are specifically looking for, to curiosity.
Yeah, so for the most part, what we are concerned about with health and health profiles we're working on are these micro minerals or trace elements. And the common ones that people will recognize are selenium, copper, maybe molybdenum, what else, zinc, things like that. And how those are all minerals that are very important for different physiological functions. Some of those are taken in the diet and some are stored, depending on what that mineral is. And they're taken in, exactly as you said, through salt licks. They're available in soil and taken up through the vegetation and then consumed by the animal. Some, less importantly, but some are dissolved in water and are taken in that way. So it's diet, but how they access that may be different for the different minerals. And similarly with the contaminants or the heavy metals taken in through diet.
With the minerals, so that's where, we know that mineral licks play an important role. we see sometimes, like you mentioned, horn growth, and we see some of the bigger rams in mines. Is that a mineral thing, or is that a habitat thing? Or obviously there's probably a bunch of combinations, but just curious about the importance of it. And then I guess too is like with the findings from this study, are there things that we can do that are going to help these sheep too? Out of curiosity.
Yeah, great question. And so yes, is the short answer is that minerals are tied to those growth characteristics. And so, yeah, important in growth and horn size of those animals that when they are mature. And yes, I think there are, if we find from this study that minerals are really impacting the health of these animals in terms of whatever that parameter that may be, growth, survival, reproduction, population persistence. There are things that can be done to change that habitat, whether that's encouraging certain plant species that take up minerals in a different way to grow, or changing that soil composition to some degree. Difficult to do on a very large scale, but in areas that we know that sheep are using those habitats, there are things that can be done on that scale.
Well, I guess you can protect mineral licks too, right? For example, like maybe use some sort of restriction so that if there's, which is common too, we know that there's areas that there's salt licks within the province that hunters are not allowed to go and harvest a ram and stuff like that. So I guess protecting habitats as well.
Yeah, exactly. And access to them, you think of roadways and the potential for overpasses or underpasses, or, just kind of that connectivity piece that we always talk about with habitats. Is we know that sheep migrate to some degree, and different populations do that differently, but that's often tied around either food or mineral sources and their needs at different times of the year.
Cool. Why the Kootenay region? So obviously we're doing the Kootenays, but that you could have done this on stone sheep perhaps, or you could have done this perhaps on Fraser sheep or something like that. So why the Kootenays?
Partly because we have a bit of a data set from that area of the province already. So some previous work was started in 2021 by the Ministry of Forests that where sheep that were found deceased, whether that be on mine sites or roadways or just incidentally, were sampled. So we have that data set to already draw from, but it's also where Dr. Amelie Mathieu is based, and she will be doing the on the ground part of this. So bit of a logistics piece, but also that access to previous data.
Well, I guess there's a really good opportunity there as well. I guess the corollary benefit of everyone being on LEH now is you have access to those people, and then it's widespread, so you're going to have really good access to people out there getting those kits distributed and that sort of stuff. So now, just out of curiosity, how long are these kits? So you said like there's mortality on the highway and that sort of stuff. So obviously post-mortem, how long is it good for where you can take these samples, and what's involved with the kit? What does a kit look like?
Yes, great question. So a kit is going to include a data sheet. So often or always actually having a sample with no associated data is fairly useless because we won't have other health parameters to tie those mineral levels back to. So a data sheet, and it's very important that we get as complete a data set as we can from these animals. So we're going to ask questions about age, sex of the animal, body condition, hair coat condition, and anything else that may, be a visual indicator of health, whether everything appeared normal on either postmortem exam or butchering. And then we are going to ask for samples from 3 different organs. So we're going to ask for a liver sample, a kidney sample, and a piece of muscle or muscle tissue to be collected. And there's going to be an individual bag for each of those tissue types, and then frozen as soon as possible after collection. So the fresher, the better. So if it's mortality sample, a road mortality, say, and that animal's very bloated and green and smelly, it's going to be less useful than a freshly dead animal, just because that decomposition process can change the mineral composition of tissues a bit. Not useful, but we would prefer to have the freshest samples and best data if possible.
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense to me because as you're talking about this, I'm like, well, why don't you just give it to a CI inspector? And clearly they're not going to, somebody guts an animal and they don't have two of the three samples that you need. That's not going to work. And then also too, somebody brings a sample in after 30 days. It's probably not going to be as good as it could be if they did it the day they harvested or within a couple days or something. So.
Exactly. Once they're frozen and preserved by freezing, then those samples can stay in someone's freezer for weeks to months until we test them. That's fine. It's just that decomposition process that we want to avoid.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to dive into some of the questions and what you're asking hunters to do. And I know we're going to we want resident hunters, guide outfitters, anyone basically that's going to be consumptive harvester out there on the landscape to getting these samples for us. And we have a limited number of kits that you mentioned earlier, Josh. But maybe before we do that, Josh, can you maybe jump in and talk a little bit about how you got involved in this project and sort of, I guess, from your perspective as a hunter conservationist, why you feel it's so critical?
Yeah. Caeley reached out to me quite some time ago last year, I think, or the winter before. We didn't have much time to get it rolled out last year, so we kind of refocused for this year and kind of let me know what Amelie was trying to achieve with it, and it seemed neat. And I've seen these. I first seen these years ago over in Dease Lake, and TCG was putting them out for guide outfitters for sample kits, and I watched Helen do a demonstration on a mule deer there actually, and I thought it's very simple, and it's cheap data collection. It's something that the citizen science and anyone can take part in. I see there's like situations like if you're on a steep hillside nighttime and it starts to rain, you're probably not going to do it, and whatever. But if you have time, it's something easy that could probably give us a lot of information in the long run. If you say have a sheep range and you can get over a few years, or 10 samples in 1 year or 2 years and have that analyzed, that's a lot of good information. And like Caeley said, like if that can lead to looking at different winter ranges or summer ranges or whatever, and look for how that nutrient's being absorbed through the vegetation. Does that lead to projects with lots of the industry development? Has that had any positive or negative effect on sheep, on their mineral absorption? So it just seems like a really simple, easy thing to do. It's holistic, and those kind of the projects I like to find, like whether it's burning or just gathering data collection, you always seem to be lacking behind. You find a problem, then you start to collect data. So if we all just have these in our backpacks and start to get that data in, it makes it a lot easier, I think, for future reviews anyway. But yeah, and so we're hoping to get the word out, and so if your buddies or whatever have a draw and you hear about it and they're not a member or not in the circle, then maybe get it and have it with you or whatever. And I think a neat thing this year, we've tried it in the past. I tried it with stone sheep. I had Caeley whip up 40 kits last year, and I got them out for stone sheep. Getting them out was fairly easy, and backcountry helped me out and stuff, but it seemed hard to get them back. And I don't think a large majority out of 40 kits, I only got one partially filled. And I'm pretty sure that they had gone back to the kill site a few days later. It was pretty ripe, but it's just like the femur bone and a few other things. So there's blood samples and stuff like that are really helpful. And the nice thing this year is that you'll be able to drop off with the CWD drop off. So as soon as you come out, you shouldn't have too much trouble kind of getting it frozen and having somewhere to like wipe your hands with it and get it off your plate and into our hands, and then we can deal with it. So what came forward to us is they needed more funding to continue. So there's kind of two parts to the project. There's the first part is they have these serum samples that need to be analyzed and get that baseline. And then there's a paper that's going to go along with that for a journal. And then there's also the development of the kits that we're going to send out, the collection, and then the analysis of all those kits, the lab analysis. And then they'll give us and put that data into it as well. So there's kind of two parts to the project that we're kind of responsible for supporting. So happy to do it, and I think it's a great idea. I kind of envision more, maybe down the road, everyone can have one of some of these in their packs just for whatever, whether you take one, you're a good goat hunt, and you feel like doing something, fill it up and bring it home and maybe we can send it in or whatever. But we'll start with this and take just a bite-sized chunk, like only 80 kits. There's way more allocations than kits we have. So do you get them in the right hands of people that actually successful harvest or get the chance to, and then hope for the best. So if we can get a portion back, get them analyzed, it'll be a success. Maybe we'll have to reissue some more the next year. But we'll look at that when we see how successful it was.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds like a super cool project. Sorry, Caeley, we're going to add to that because then I got a question for you about it too.
No, I was just going to add thanks to Josh if he was involved in the Skeena project a few years ago, because that was my graduate work. And we did have quite a few samples back from that. And I know you guys well know, but I hope everyone can recognize that the importance of people that are out on the landscape and the wildlife health piece of just the observations and collecting those samples, because as the researchers in our labs and our offices, we can't be all those places. So it's a key partnership.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think, for our listeners, this is an opportunity for us to step up as a community, support the government. And, we're always worried about government data, right? Like, what are they going to do with it? How are they going to use it against us as hunters and that sort of stuff? And this is a pretty hard argument to use against hunters. It's not going to be restricting your seasons or shutting things down. It's a noble study, from all I can see. So I think that this is a great opportunity to show our support for you, Caeley, and the province, and get some really good data and see what we can do in the Kootenays to support these big healthy rams and make sure that we have really healthy sheep in the region. But I think that what I'd like to do now is just what's expected of people. So let's start off and sort of paint the picture of what do they have to do? How onerous is it? And then from there, we'll talk about what steps they need to go from there in terms of acquiring it and some of the what's involved with it.
Yeah. Okay. So for all successful LEH holders, there is going to be some information sent out with who to reach out to if they're interested in receiving a kit, and then what those steps look like, or what the sample collection, preservation, and drop-off steps look like. So that's going to be one way, but then also reaching out, I believe, sorry, to Josh to put you on the spot, but to Josh directly or Wild Sheep Society will also have access to those kits. So as mentioned, we'll have 80 of them. They are a small Ziploc bag that has a few more bags as well as the data sheet tucked in them, and an instruction sheet, so people don't have to remember all these details when they're out on the hunt. So what we're asking is that when processing the animal, is that a piece, and I can't remember the exact description that we use in the instruction sheet size wise, but it's roughly half an apple that we are looking for from each tissue type. So from the liver into a baggie, from the kidney into the baggie, and that whole kidney, depending on the size of it, may fit into a bag. That's ideal if you can get the whole kidney in there. If not, then slicing it a bit so that it can fit into that bag. And similarly with muscle, so a kind of half an apple size chunk of muscle into a bag. Those can then be carried out with you, and as soon as they can get into a freezer, the better. So if you have a way to keep things cool or relatively cool when you're in the field, whatever that may look like, great. Add your samples to that. But recognizing that's difficult. And so just as soon as you can get samples into a freezer, the better. Getting all that data on the data form, and then getting those samples either to the Kootenay regional office in Cranbrook, or, as Josh mentioned, to one of the chronic wasting disease sample freezers, which are distributed around throughout the province. The instruction sheet will also have a link to where those freezer locations are, but you can also look them up on our Wildlife Health Program website under chronic wasting disease freezer locations. There's a pretty comprehensive list with directions there. And then once we have those samples, so those freezers are checked weekly during the hunting season because of chronic wasting disease samples. So those sheep samples will be picked up at the same time. They'll be processed in bulk, near the end of the hunting season, and then sent for diagnostic testing at that point. Some important things to remember when collecting samples and when, if handling the tissue is that one of the pieces that we've mentioned that we're looking for are these heavy metal components. So there are some things that we do as humans that may contaminate tissues. And when we process these tissues, we try and account for that we'll trim all the edges of the tissues off. But for example, smoking while processing these tissues can elevate some of the heavy metals unnaturally. So be mindful of kind of what else is happening in the environment when collecting them.
Okay. So they collect the samples, and then I guess there's really no timelines. Like obviously ideally you don't want something 2 years from now that's sat in someone's freezer, but they don't need to get you to it. As long as they freeze the items, they can get it to you in a week or 10 days or something. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. Whenever it's convenient for people to get it to the drop-off location is fine.
So there's no nasal swabs, there's no blood. You're basically taking the three tissues, and that's about it.
Yes, yeah, and then the data about the animal.
Sounds pretty straightforward to me. Doesn't sound overly onerous. So what's our sort of, where do people need to go to get these, Josh? Where are we sending people? What's going to be the best approach? So the society, it's in our magazine right now. There's a QR code and contact information there and a little bit of information on how to use it. Not too much. We didn't put the full bit in there, but we have reference to it. But where do people need to go to get involved if they're drawn for LEH, for Region 4 sheep?
Yeah, they can either through the e-blast email, the magazine. Are we going to be able to maybe get some up on the website for the projects just for a link to go to it? And then we'll definitely put it on our socials as well with some kind of guidance to that system. And anyone can always contact me through socials as well, and I should be able to just send them a link. But then they'll just pretty much put in their local information, and they'll get it sent out.
Okay. Are we thinking we might want to have some available in region that people can pick up if they want to go pick some up from somebody? Or I know Dylan Forsyth reached out and he's offered, but are we thinking about doing something like that, or you prefer to mail it out so we have a bit more direct control and know exactly where they're going?
No, we're going to get a couple into a few local hands. I think that's smart. We have enough, so if we give, 4 to 5 kits, 6 kits locally there, and the guys hear of somebody got a ram yesterday or whatever, they can maybe go in and get it, or maybe just catch somebody that doesn't have one and kind of hand it out. And then, just get their contact information, and we know how to follow up and see how they did.
Cool.
Yeah.
So there's really 2 parts that hunters need to think about if they've drawn for LEH in 4 is, first of all, we only have 80 kits. So, there's several hundred allocations. So we're probably going to get them all in everybody's hands. So keep that in mind. So if you're interested and you want to help out in the study, make sure you reach out early on. Don't wait until the day before you go hunting. And obviously we got to get it to you too. So there's that part. And then the other part is, if for some reason you forget or you don't, or you hear about this after the fact, reach out to Josh, because we'll maybe keep a handful around for somebody that harvests a ram and maybe wants to help out. But again, keeping in mind that you need those 3 different samples, right? So, if you don't take the kidney or whatever the case may be, it's hard to go and get that after the fact, especially if it's been sitting on the mountain for a week. So,
yeah, I would say just because I've had different feedback and where I've done it over the years is like, keep the kit with your knives, like you're in your top pocket of your pack, or like with your game bag, somewhere you'll see it. Lots of times it's like, one of those things that gets put in the bottom of the pack for the trip. And then I've had guys come out and say they got a ram, but they forgot to do the kit. So like, leave it in your top pocket or with your knife, somewhere you're going to go to get your stuff and be like, all right. And then if you got 2 guys, it's great. Like one guy can do the documentation, while the other guys, like you'll do the gutless method, typically do your dorsal cut and then roll everything out. And then you can collect it all after. Put it in the bags. It's usually got gloves in it and everything else. So, but those are the 2 tips. Like, have one guy do the documentation or do it before you start and get too messy, and then get your samples. But keep it where you pretty much have to trip over it to get to your knives, and then you won't forget. But yeah, I mean, we only have 80 kits, so the more we get back completed, the better. And then yeah.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, that's the big thing is getting them out there and then also getting them back. That's a big part of this, right? So if we distribute them well and everyone 80 go out and then we don't get any back, that's not helping us much. So I guess that's the other thing. If you don't think you're interested in it, maybe don't. You probably don't need the kit. I guess that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, maybe you got the draw and maybe you not really know what you're up against. And you might not have success, but maybe you get luck out and then there's a local one that you can maybe pick up and connect with and get back out there and get some stuff yeah, so we'll see what we get. We're kind of pioneering here, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah. And I think too, for our listeners, and if you know somebody that's got a draw, just reach out to them, just say, hey, it's an opportunity to help out. There's really no risk involved and we're not asking too much, but you can really make a difference down the road and get some data sets that's really going to help these Region 4 sheep down the road. So,
yeah. And physically, it won't be too much of a burden. Like some of the kits I've had carried around, they're like 8 ounces. And then completed probably less than 3 pounds. And I think the only thing, like I mentioned, is the kidney. One thing they want is all the fat around the kidney. So don't trim a lot off. Keep it all intact.
Okay. So Caeley, when you get this information, you collect this data. Obviously, you guys use it, and for us, what you guys do in the lab, there's a black hole. We just it goes in there, and something happens, but we don't really know what. So, what kind of first of all, I know with CWD, you guys do tell people if there's a positive case with their animal, that sort of stuff. But would they? I guess it really doesn't do any good to anyone to get this information back. It's not like they're going to make any changes, or people probably even aren't that interested in the data itself.
Yeah, no, we weren't planning on distributing data back to individuals. It's certainly going to all be tracked by the kits have a unique identifying number on them, and that'll be associated with those samples. So if anyone is interested down the road in what the mineral levels were of the animal they harvested, they can reach out and we can provide that data. But there's going to be a bit of a lag period anyways of when those samples are processed and then the results come through. And then, as I say, it's kind of more of a population or area-based work rather than individual sheep. We're certainly not expecting there to be any human health factors identified here. And I would be very surprised if anything was. So that's not a part of the study. And again, because of that lag period, it's likely irrelevant anyways in terms of practices and decisions about the meat or that animal. So no, weren't. In short, we'll report back as what we found from the study, and that may be by area if there are differences, or an overall for the region. And then the long-term goal is to publish this and use it as reference levels for future wild sheep health work and assessment.
So, what are some management outcomes that could come from this? Do you have any sort of thoughts on that? Like, I know it's early days, and I correct me. Is it Dr. Matthew? Is she doing the analysis and doing the paper? She's doing the work on it, right? Like, you're obviously facilitating it through the government, but she's going to be doing the work on it.
Correct. Yeah. Emily will be doing the bulk of it. It's as the wildlife health program that I lead and represent. We're supporting. But Emily will be doing the analysis and the tissue prep and getting the data back. I mean, I'll certainly help her where I can, but she'll be the main eyes on that information and writing it up. So the potential management outcomes that could come from this as we talked about is changing the vegetation in certain areas, or access of sheep to certain areas that may support them either getting more mineral if we find a deficiency, or maybe if we're finding, again, I don't expect that we'll find toxic levels of anything anywhere, but you never know. And that's why we're doing this. So, if we're finding that there are toxic levels of any of those classifications of minerals, the macro, micro, or heavy metals, then maybe restricting access to those if there aren't other mitigation or practices that can be undertaken. So I think it might lead to kind of managing how sheep use habitat or altering that habitat on the scale that is, appropriate to do so.
Awesome. And so Josh, you talked a little bit about having multiple years of data sets, or maybe it was you, Caeley, forgive me, whoever it was. Is that important? Is this going to be multiple years? Are you guys going to do this for the next 3 or 4 years, or so one-off?
Ideally, I mean, as Josh said, this is kind of our first kick at it, and so we'll see what the return rate is of kits, see what the feedback is from hunters, whether that was something that they enjoyed or want to see moving forward or enjoyed participating in, or it was too much of a burden, or whatever that feedback may be. But anytime with data like this, having a longitudinal or data set spanning multiple years is going to be more helpful, because these things do change year by year too with environmental factors. So, capturing that piece of it may be important.
Awesome. Josh, have you reached out to the outfitting community? Obviously, their success rate's a little higher than the resident hunting community, so pretty critical that they're on board. Have you had much dialogue yet, or is that just the early stages as well?
I've done a little bit of outreach, but it's still pretty minimal right now. But yeah, any outfitters, any guided outfitters definitely would like support as well, for getting the kits and getting them completed. Definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Caeley, is there anything else specifically about this? I got some stuff just on general citizen science and the importance of that. But before we sort of go down that rabbit hole, is there anything else on this project that yourself, Caeley, or Josh, that we missed or we want to talk about, or any points we need to sort of hit on?
For me, I mean, most people now should know if they got the draw or not. So if you got a draw, find the QR code and order a kit. So we have time to ship it out prior to season start. That's step one. And then if you're successful in harvest, complete it and get it back. So definitely don't sit on it too long, or you might not get a kit, or it might not get to you in time. So please, if you got it drawn, order a kit.
So just for ease of simplicity, you talked about the QR code, and by all means, I'll include all that information on the show notes here and everything. And we're going to push this really hard now that we've done the podcast. This will go out it's in our magazine, so you can look in our Wild Sheep magazine. But how can people reach out to you if they want to contact you, Josh? Where's that QR code directing people to?
It's directing to them. It's just a simple website, and it's just pretty much putting in your information, mailing address, and it's whether you're a LEH holder, a guide outfitter, other, and it's coming to you. That's it. It's real simple.
Okay, sounds good. Well,
if you need to get a hold of me, my email is usually in the magazine as well, and for vice chair of the project committee, and then. Or it'll get directed to me no matter what, or find me on social.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Caeley, anything else that we missed?
No, I think that covers it. And if people have questions more about the study design, or any of that background information they're welcome to get in touch with me as well, or, through Josh, or looking me up on the Wildlife Health Program website.
Cool. Okay, so maybe, before I let you go, we've got this opportunity, Caeley, now just touch a little bit about citizen science. Hunters are going to be in the backcountry for the next 3, 4, 5 months. And so, really we're the eyes and ears on the ground for someone like yourself and for the government and for issues and emerging issues. And of course, we're well aware of CWD in the Kootenay region now, and possibly beyond too. Who knows? So maybe just touch a little bit about the importance of citizen science and, what the best approach is. Like, let's say somebody sees a sick deer, or they see a MOV affected lamb, for example, or sheep, for example. Who are they reaching out to? What's their best point of contact? And are we the RAP line? Do they reach out to you at the Animal Health Center? Do they reach out to the society if it's sheep related? What's our best approach for some of these issues that hunters might see this fall?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Kyle, because that is a very important point that you made, is that hunters are the ones on the landscape and seeing how these populations look and how they're performing really. And so citizen science is huge. It's everything. We do have regional biologists that are out as much as they can within their jobs and the projects that they're running, but it's minimal compared to what the larger human population of hunters and other interested parties are able to collect as far as observations and data. So very much appreciate any type of observations that people have, and those can come directly to me. Again, my contact information is on the Wildlife Health Program website. They can go to the RAP line. Those reports usually get passed on to me with some delay, but that's okay. But that's fine too, or to regional staff if you have a contact within the region that you're hunting or that you live, that you can pass that information to. That is fine too. So generally what we have in mind when we're receiving those kind of observations is we need to know the location, or if there's a herd name associated, and then obviously species and any other information about that particular animal. But what we have in mind is we're looking for trends or clusters, or something that may indicate that this is more than a one-off and a sickly looking animal. Of course, those one-offs are important to report because we may have had other reports that you don't know about from that same area. So we're collecting that data and looking at patterns. But even, one coughing sheep could be significant if it's, the first one in an area, or, skinny looking deer in an area of the province where we don't expect it. Of course, there are many underlying diseases or health conditions that can cause similar signs or similar symptoms, and that's where collecting that data and looking at these patterns is important. So anything that you see when you're out and about, love to receive those reports. Photos, videos are always great if you can, but just even kind of verbal or written observation is a good place to start.
Awesome. Okay, so reach out to you guys, the RAP line. I think on the disease file, we have the sheep separation coordinator, Jeremy Ayotte, and Jeremy's very active. So you could reach out to, in theory, Jeremy or the society. We can direct you as well too. So if it's CWD related issue, obviously that's not us. So either your office, obviously Kate Nilsson's heading up that file. So reach out to Kate directly through the website, and that's plastered everywhere. So people should have a really good idea where to go anyway. But I think the key takeaway there is if you suspect something, just reach out. There's no harm. And it doesn't have to be region 4. It could be another region, because it doesn't mean that it hasn't spread somewhere new, and getting on early is a good thing. So,
yeah, exactly. One other thing to note is also when you have your hands on the animal, if it's something that maybe it appeared healthy from a distance, and now you're looking at organs or skin or hair and see something that you're a bit concerned about, whether that's for your own health, for the health of that animal or that population. Again, photos, videos, questions, all welcome.
just curious, Caeley, and I probably shouldn't be asked this. I should ask this offline because it can be controversial, but we're not given swabs. So, do we not? Like, I know it's been a bit of a challenge, and there's different schools of thought that, taking nasal swabs can be, we can get bad swabs, and then we're getting bad data, which is almost better than no data, I guess. So, but is there, we're already setting these kits out. I guess if you give them too many tests, then people are like, oh, I'm not going to do it. And then they don't do a proper job on the 3 tests they should have done.
That's part of it. But the other reason is, for the last few years, we've had Together for Wildlife funding to swab all sheep that are CI'd, that are undergo compulsory inspection. So there is another route that these animals will be tested for MOVI. We actually don't know yet whether we have that funding this year. So I guess for that may be something that we consider putting in kits in a last minute if we don't have that that compulsory inspection route for collecting these samples. But how we have it set up now is that we weren't going to include them because we don't need 2 samples from each animal.
Okay, cool. Yeah, perfect. Well, that makes a lot of sense. That would perfectly explain why you guys don't do it. So, Yeah. Awesome. What are we missing, Josh? What else do we need to talk about? Anything else we need to hit on?
Uh, no, it's nice to finally. Well, we've been trying to get into Region 4 and be more active there over the last few years. I mean, lots of invasive species work, little bit of collaring and this and that. So it's nice to have something else to start with there, kind of, and kind of flagship this there and see how it goes. Yeah, nice to do something for Region 4. That's the main thing for this.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very well said. Well, I
Other
guess
than that, kind of good luck Godspeed to all the fellow sheep hunters. It's that time again. It's the storm before the calm. And then, yeah, work hard. Watch your wind. On big rams.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you both. Yeah, I think that's all I've got. And yeah, really excited about it, getting this out there and getting it around. If anyone has any questions, we're putting all the information in the show notes. We'll have the QR code and we'll push this out really hard so that you shouldn't miss it. But if you have any questions, reach out to the society, just send us an email or obviously Josh or Caeley, and we'll get you dialed in. But recommend do it early because like we said, it's more than likely all 80 kits are going to be spoken for pretty quickly. So awesome. Thank you both. Have a great fall, and we'll do this again soon.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.